Part 72. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 729. In the world of justice, the world of God's throne, the Minister of Internal Affairs, Ming Kehui applied to see the goddess Binghua. Facing the application of the Minister of the Interior, the demigod warrior who was responsible for guarding the throne room and holding a halberd lowered his head and looked at the thin old man who was only as tall as his chest, and stretched out his big armor-covered hand. Ming Kehui took off the nameplate attached to the chest of his military uniform and handed it to the demigod warrior wearing golden paint to scan it. This was a necessary procedure, and no matter who came, everyone needed to go through the step. Verification passed. Welcome to your visit, Sir Ming Kehui. The demigod warrior handed the nameplate to Ming Kehui. His voice was unusually dull through the night-like helmet, and it looked extremely majestic with the upward-turned feathers on both sides of his ears. As the demigod warriors on duty moved out of the way, the closed giant alloy door began to slowly open inward, revealing the extremely bright and spacious hall between the thrones. In the hall, apart from the smooth and clean floor and the avenue with a gold-rimmed red carpet in the middle, there is only the beautiful figure sitting on the throne at the end. He is so noble and exudes such divine brilliance that even the ruthless carving knife of time cannot leave any trace on his body. Ming Kehui, I have met your majesty the goddess. Your glory still shines on all the people of the righteous world. After stroking her chest and saluting, Ming Qi slightly raised his head and looked at the goddess's face. This opportunity was rare. Even among the top leaders of the righteous world, there were very few people who could actually see the goddess's face. Most people can only see the goddess's appearance through video recordings. Even in some worlds with a strong religious atmosphere in the empire, the goddess's portraits have become extremely popular works of art. Ming Kehui once bought a portrait of a goddess from a master, but after comparing it with the appearance of the goddess he had witnessed, he immediately burned it. That is simply a slander against the goddess. However, the goddess was too kind and did not care about such trivial matters. Ming Kehui finally resisted the decision to destroy all the goddess's portraits circulating in the market. Ming Kehui, you don't have to say this every time you see me. You know I don't like these ritualistic things. And is there anything important you came to see me for? Binghua turned off the holographic projection in front of him, and his eyes fell on Ming Kehui below to show that he valued him. Goddess, according to statistics, there are more than 1,000 worlds directly under the jurisdiction of the justice world. Although with the coordination of Lord Tianjian, the Ministry of Internal Affairs can still maintain the normal operation of the world of justice, it has reached its limit. I would like to apply to you to expand the power of the Ministry of the Interior, allowing us to establish branches directly under the Ministry of the Interior in various worlds and recruit more manpower, so that we can implement your policies more efficiently. Ming Kehui revealed the reason why he came to meet him. In fact, he had proposed this proposal at the Supreme Council of the Just World, but it was rejected by most world leaders. This made Ming Kehui very dissatisfied. As the highest official of the Just World coordinating internal affairs, it is his political opinion to allow the Just World to strengthen its cohesion and give power to the Supreme Goddess. But the Justice World has been an alliance since its establishment. Each world has its so-called leaders, who have their own military power and government, while the God's throne world only has the most basic supervision and guidance rights. The most important supervisory power is not in the hands of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, but belongs to the so-called judgment angels. Those angels of the same race as the goddess have extremely rigid thinking. They only know how to act according to the regulations and will not turn around at all. Ming Kehui has had enough of dealing with them. They want so-called evidence for everything they do. Their philosophy of not accepting company without evidence is annoying to her, and their eyes are very poisonous. Any officials who have made mistakes and are on their blacklist will be found the so-called evidence and tried one by one. So far, they have not made a mistake. Not long ago, the second angel of judgment, Changming, even went to the Edge world alone, and captured a world leader who had deducted pensions from sacrificed soldiers in the tribunal of the throne world, and broadcast the trial process live throughout the world of justice. The reason was simply that the families who received the pension felt that the amount was 1/10 less than what was stipulated in the military regulations when their son joined the army, so they reported this matter to the Angel of Judgment stationed locally. After investigation, the Judgment Angel discovered that this matter was deeply involved and involved world leaders. As an ordinary Judgment Angel, he was not qualified to arrest world leaders, so he reported the matter to the superior Judgment Angel. The reason why ordinary Judgment Angels are not allowed to be responsible for world leader level judgments is for the safety of Judgment Angels. You must know that Judgment Angels are generally held by second or third generation angels. Their subordinates do not have the power to command the military, but world leaders do, and they have the power to command and mobilize the military of the entire world. If there is a conflict between the two parties, it is the Judgment Angel who suffers. Therefore, only when cases involving world leaders are involved, the Judgment Archangel, who is a God-level angel, will personally take action. But this institution, which can be called absolutely violent, is a department independent of the just world government. If it weren't for the goddess's order, he would have scolded the person who set up this system to death because it weakened the central government. Government authority. Minkwei. In the early days of the creation of Justice World, it was decided that Justice World would only be an alliance that unites all worlds, because my purpose of creating her was to unite the forces of all worlds to fight against the terror in the Sea of Stars. Your proposal has offended the interests of all worlds. If successfully implemented, it will undoubtedly be a rip-off of their bodies. World leaders do not want anyone to dictate their affairs. Binghua secretly shook his head slightly, feeling that Minkwei's proposal would be difficult to pass without his own intervention. But goddess, if you don't do this, the righteous world will not be able to effectively govern those worlds. Only a high degree of unity of rights can effectively mobilize the resources of the entire justice world, and some worlds are often indifferent to the instructions issued by the Ministry of Internal Affairs or even delay them because of their remote distance. If this continues, the system of a just world will become increasingly fragile. Binghua didn't take it seriously when he heard this. The worlds Minkwei mentioned were recorded by Tianjian. Those remote worlds are often developed from newly established colonies. Everything is based on the premise of self-development. Sometimes the God Throne world even needs to assist in the infrastructure construction of these worlds. It was obvious that Minkwei was just using it as an excuse, but what Minkwei didn't know was that what he was worried about couldn't happen at all. As long as she was still there, the world of justice would not be in chaos. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 730. Your proposal is beneficial to the overall development of the just world at this stage, but there is no need to implement it immediately. Also, the system of the just world is not as fragile as you think. Minkwei, you can take a closer look when you have time in the future, not from the system, but from the hearts of the residents of the just world. Binghua's intention to see off the guests was obvious, because everything had been discussed. Minkwei could certainly understand the meaning, and reluctantly resigned to Binghua, and then left the throne room. After sending Minkwei away, a communication request popped up. Binghua was a little surprised when he saw the message. It turned out to be He-11. Since Kesha visited the Justice World last time, the Justice World and Merlot Heavenly Court have established a communication channel. Only Kesha and He-11 have the right to use this channel. Kesha asked Binghua for some unknown reason, and Binghua was happy to do so. Hey, hello, can you receive it? The signal here is not very good. He-11's slightly distorted voice came from the other end of the communication, and the holographic projection was blurred from time to time, and it finally stabilized after a while. Binghua, I think you can set up a signal base station, so that we can save so much trouble in contacting you. I will build it in the future, but when I can hear your voice in this star field, I feel as excited as those young angels who have not seen it for a long time. Binghua responded with a smile. Compared with the seriousness when talking to Kesha, talking to Hexi is always relaxed and happy because there are not so many annoying topics. He 11 was in a good mood after hearing Binghua's words. Time had not left any rift between her and Binghua. We haven't seen each other for so many years, but your words still make me happy, sister. It would be great if Chui could be like you. She always has a cold face every day, and she always chokes me when I talk to her. Sister Hexi, this may be her unique way of communicating with you. In my opinion, her relationship with you is very good. He 11 shook his head slightly. Forget it, let's not talk about her anymore. He 11 then looked through the holographic projection between the thrones where Binghua was, and then said something strange. Is your environment well designed? It's just a bit empty. I like such a quiet and open environment, since few people come here usually. If the decoration here is too fancy, it will disturb my thoughts during research. Binghua nodded her head with her hand, while Hexi rolled his eyes, obviously not believing it. With her and Binghua's mental computing capabilities, they could think in multiple threads at the same time, and they were afraid of the static environment of the outside world. Okay, I'm not going to tell you all these things. You really, to be honest, said this on purpose to amuse my sister and me. Binghua just smiled and said nothing more, but the corners of her mouth were slightly raised than usual, and it could be seen that she was in a happy mood. My sister is not here to bother you, just to chat with you. I have encountered a research problem here. Do you know that guy Carl? What's the matter? I know him. We have discussed some academic issues in the super seminary before, but I am not familiar with him. Binghua wondered why Hexi suddenly mentioned Carl in his words, but she wouldn't be surprised if Liang Bing mentioned Carl. That's good. That guy Carl is in trouble right now. Kesha was frustrated at his place some time ago, and she was sulking alone for a long time when she came back. When he 11 said these things, there was an uncontrollable smile in his words. Does Queen Keisha also have such a side? Binghua was a little surprised, because Kesha gave her the impression that she was extremely rational and serious, and rarely showed her tender side, let alone such a childish look. Okay, let's stop talking about Queen Kesha behind my back. If she finds out, she will have to wear small shoes for me. Of course, Binghua is not the kind of person who likes to gossip about others behind their backs, and neither is he 11, saying that these are just sharing his own happiness. As the saying goes, it is better to have fun alone than to have fun with everyone. You just said that Carl made Kesha suffer, what's going on? Although Queen Keisha's ability cannot be said to be invincible in the known universe, she is basically unrivaled. What kind of ability does Carl have that he can do this? To be honest, Binghua was a little curious, but he was not worried about Merlot Heavenly Court, because from he 11's attitude when he spoke, it could be seen that the situation was not that serious. It won't be clear for a while. I will package the information and send it directly. You will know after checking it later. After he 11 finished speaking, he started uploading the information. Soon Binghua received the information package sent from Merlot Heavenly Court, and read it directly before he 11 could say anything. After a moment, Binghua frowned slightly and turned off the data image and the data collected by Hexi using the space-based computing cloud. It really surprised me. The defense mode of this divine body is very strange. It is like a holographic projection composed of pure energy. After being damaged, it can recover quickly. I'm right, the technology that Carl now masters has exceeded the cognitive scope of our angels. However, through this, I came up with the development plan for the 4th generation divine body. We angels can also make the divine body into a similar existence. I already have some ideas. Hexi rubbed her chin. This was her usual action when thinking about problems, and Binghua was already used to it. Then let's have a listen. I might be able to give you some advice. That's okay, I don't expect the fourth generation divine body to develop in a stronger or tougher direction. Through Carl's living sample, I found that instead of simply increasing the defense ability to withstand weapons that can cause fatal blows to the divine body, it is better to think differently. Wouldn't it be easier to make those weapons unable to cause effective damage to us? My temporary idea is to compress the data of the super gene to the atomic level and write it into the atoms, so that each atom that makes up the divine body has complete divine body data. This can avoid the problem of difficulty in recovering and healing a part of the divine body after it is destroyed. Is it similar to the self-growth of living things? This can indeed make the god-killing weapon lose most of its effects. Binghua nodded and gave his own opinion. If He-11's opinion was realized, almost all ordinary god-killing weapons would be reduced to scrap metal. But compared to self-growth, I once encountered a creature here that can move and combine itself in liquid and solid states at will. Moreover, the former god of Devourer also had the ability to split his body and reassemble it. Sister Hexy, if you really research in this direction, why don't you focus on the atomic level? You must know that everything in the world is basically composed of atoms. Since our research can already affect the atomic level and write data into it, why not allow our divine bodies to separate and aggregate at the atomic level? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 731. Binghua's words were like enlightenment. Hexy clapped his hands. Why didn't he think of it? Since you can operate on the atomic level, why should you focus on the macroscopic divine body? Wouldn't it be more delicious to create a divine body that can be restored immediately even if it is blown into countless pieces? Oh, Binghua, you have a good idea. Sister, my chat with you today is not in vain. Binghua smiled and couldn't help but said when she saw Hexy's excitement. Sister Hexy, even if we have this kind of divine body technology, it only increases the self-protection ability of our angels. If we only have a shield but no sword in our hands, we cannot guarantee the future of the angels. Oh, do you have any ideas? He-11 looked at Binghua with interest. She had enough confidence in her sister, and she could always come up with some different tricks. By studying microstar drive technology, I have made great breakthroughs in space and energy compression technology. I have been planning to try to capture a star for my own use for a while and make it into a weapon, but since I have never tried it, I don't know if it will work. Binghua scratched the hair on his forehead a little embarrassedly, as if the technological breakthrough he had made was not worth mentioning. The corner of He-11's mouth twitched slightly when he heard this. When it comes to capturing stars and influencing stars, angels can do it. Even the technology to drive stars is controlled by a civilization in the known universe, that is, the Liang civilization. But when it comes to capturing stars and turning them into weapons, Binghua was the first to propose this concept. Because it is too difficult, the energy possessed by stars is too huge, and the consequences of losing control are extremely terrifying. The fate of the Dino civilization is a bloody lesson. Are you serious? Well, I'm serious. I've been trying for thousands of years and I finally got results. As Binghua raised her hand, a moment later a lifelike star appeared in her palm. Just like a real star in the universe, scorching light streams would appear on the surface from time to time. Even with Binghua's force field preventing the energy from leaking out, the entire throne room was still illuminated by a layer of fire. This force field is the key to capturing stars. I have tried it countless times, but the previous experiments were all mimic stars I created. The diameter of the largest volume does not exceed 100 kilometers, but according to Tianjian's calculation results, it is completely feasible. Binghua looked excited as she spoke, completely losing her usual calmness, just like a little girl who was eager to show others her proudest achievements. If this experiment can be successful, I will next plan to use neutron stars to make the shell of weapons. Black holes are not impossible to use as materials, but we still have to wait until the first step is completed. Binghua, even after more than 10,000 years, even if you become the leader of a civilized order, I find that you are still the same female angel from Marrow Academy who was obsessed with weapon development. Hexie sighed. Binghua just smiled and didn't say anything. After that, Binghua and Hexie chatted for a long time, ranging from the interesting stories in Merlot Academy, to the hardships during the war between male and female angels, and some changes in Merlot Heaven today. Until the end, he 11 said, I'm waiting for you to return to the known universe. Then we sisters must have a good get-together. After Hexie finished speaking, he waved his hand to Binghua, and then the holographic image projected between the thrones turned into countless light particles. Hexie's communication can be regarded as a small episode in Binghua's peaceful research life. The development of the world of justice has not stagnated due to the loss of her intervention as a goddess. In addition to the increasingly larger elite legions, expedition fleets in various worlds, and the demigod legions and god fleets of the last guardians of the world of justice, the newly added angel legions have gradually grown in size. Because of his outstanding performance, Kaza was appointed by Binghua to serve as the commander of the newly established Angel Legion. This newly established Angel Legion was different from the Legion of Merlot Heaven. It is not composed purely of male angels. There are also battle groups composed of female angel warriors, but the number is not large, but in a broad sense it can be regarded as a long-lost progress. After all, this is the beginning of male and female angels gradually understanding each other and respecting each other. Even the rejection of male angels by the female angels who have experienced that dark age has weakened slightly. And when they fight side by side and fight against powerful enemies together, I believe this feeling of rejection will become smaller and smaller. In the end, they may even form a family with some of their favorite male angels. After all, on the battlefield of life and death, anything is possible, and it is common for relationships to deteriorate. In fact, this can be regarded as a bit of Binghua's selfishness. By trying to increase the population of angels in this way, she is also thinking about the future of angels. While Binghua was preparing to conduct his own star capture experiment, an urgent message from the intelligence department under the Ministry of Military Affairs from the Divine Throne World disrupted Binghua's steps. When Minister of Military Affairs Abi Karkin saw Binghua, he stood at attention and gave a chest salute. The Ice Flower Goddess, the Eternal Ascender, is making big moves. Observation departments in various worlds have recently discovered that many stars in the starry sky have abnormal trajectories. After careful investigation and detection, we have been able to determine that those stars with abnormal orbits are likely to be the planetary fortresses of the Eternal Ascended Ones. Binghua couldn't help but feel troubled when she heard this. She did not doubt the authenticity of Military Affairs Minister Abi Kaken's words. The other party must have obtained the exact information before reporting this matter to her. But hasn't the target of the Eternal Ascended Ones always been the Chaos Virus? Now it seems that they have turned to the righteous world as their target. When she thought of this, Binghua felt that this time she could not let Justice World deal with it alone like last time, and she immediately gave instructions to Abi Kaken. Convene all world leaders to prepare for a world conference on justice. I will also attend the conference this time. Abi Kaken was stunned when he heard this. It was not unusual to convene a world conference, but it was indeed rare for the goddess to decide to attend a conference in person. But at the same time, it was rare that Abi Kaken felt extremely solemn in his heart, because this represented the abnormal movement of the Eternal Ascended One, which had reached the point where the goddess felt that the righteous world could not handle it alone without her intervention. Following Hyuka's order, the World Conference of Justice, which had not yet reached its scheduled date, was temporarily announced. The exact news that the goddess would attend made all worlds attach great importance to it, and no world leader planned to be absent. This also caused a lot of discussion among the people in the world of justice. The people felt that something big was about to happen, and they were worried for a while. However, Binghua did not block the news. She disdained to do such a thing. Since the establishment of the justice world, the government has not concealed any dangerous information from the residents of the justice world. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 732. On the day of the Justice World Conference, there were 1,052 seats in the conference hall, all of which were packed with people of different skin colors, clothing, and unique looks. Sitting at the front of the seats were several tall and strong giant-like beings. They were the leaders of the original world. They had undergone the complete strengthening and transformation of the world of justice, and were the template prototypes of each elite legion warrior. Among these original world leaders who are as tall as giants, only two are special. One is Queen Qi of Ilals, who maintains a normal human body shape, and the other is the great wise man of the world of Makra, who is also the leader of Makra. World Academy Alliance, Honorary Chief Dean. In order to allow the leaders of each world to have a clear view of the center of the hall, the seats are raised in steps. Even if the leaders of the transformation warriors in the front row are taller, they will not block the view of the world leaders behind them. As the space blurred, Binghua walked out of the wormhole. The world leaders who were talking to each other all fell silent. Binghua sat in his own seat, facing the world leaders in front of him. After the Minister of Internal Affairs Minky Wei saw the goddess arriving, he immediately began to read out the reasons for convening the justice meeting. When they heard that the Eternal Ascended Ones were likely to start a full-scale war with the just world, most of the world leaders present had solemn faces. There were only a few thoughtful ones, and of course there was no shortage of war lunatics with expectant faces. Binghua had a panoramic view of all this, and after seeing the world leaders think for a while, Binghua took over the right to speak. Every world governor, you don't need to panic too much. It will take at least 10 years for the Eternal Ascended One to truly reach the territory of the righteous world. But this time is different from the past. Our strength has made it difficult for them to sleep and eat, and they will definitely use their full strength to interrupt our rise. Therefore, this war is inevitable, and you cannot take any chances, because it is related to the survival of our just world. After Binghua finished speaking these words, he paused for a moment to let the various world leaders and governors present digest the information. Several of the original world leaders who have worked hard from the early days of the establishment of the justice world to the present are extremely calm, because they have all encountered more desperate situations than this. However, those worlds and their leaders who later joined the justice world system could not be so calm. Everyone knew how heavy the casualties were in the recent Battle of Ilals. You must know that that is one of the original worlds, Ilals, and even they have fought so hard, let alone their worlds that have been established for less than 1,000 years or a few decades. You don't have to worry too much. This war is a matter for the entire righteous world. If we win, we will have a firm foothold in this starry sky. If we lose, I don't need to say more. Everyone knows the outcome. When the world of justice disintegrates, you will all have to return to the days of fear and fear. Maybe one day the passing eternity will burn your home to ashes. There was no force in Binghua's voice, just like an ordinary gentlewoman, but every word she said was imprinted in the hearts of everyone present. Because what the goddess said was true. If they had not joined the justice world and the dangers were blocked by various powerful worlds, how could they live a prosperous life now? So I hereby declare that from today onwards, all worlds will enter a state of war mobilization, and there will be unlimited recruitment of those willing to join the army. The armies of all worlds will uniformly carry out new equipment replacement and tactical training regardless of the world. Each forge world has entered full production mode, hoarding various military supplies and supporting large and small warships for the coming war. Binghua talked a lot about preparations for war. This was a decision she made after counting the resources that the entire justice world could mobilize through Tianjian in the past 2 days. Until the end, Binghua looked at the world leaders present and said, "Everyone, let this war tell the eternal ascender that we are no longer weaklings who can be bullied by him." Several world leaders in the front row took the lead in standing up, and then other world leaders followed suit and shouted loudly with somewhat uneven voices. "In order to protect a just world, I am willing to give everything I have." After that, there were several hours of detailed planning. Binghua did not participate in it, but handed it over to the officials of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Otherwise, she would have done everything, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs had nothing to do. Wouldn't it look like theirs? The position is awkward. After the meeting, Binghua passed through the gate of time and space and came to a star field far away from the world of justice. It was very empty and there were no traces of civilization around it. It was very suitable for conducting some large-scale and dangerous experiments. Binghua first focused on a small star, because it would make the experiment slightly less difficult. Although he was in a hurry, Binghua had to speed up his research progress. Otherwise, when the war really starts, she will probably have very little free time to conduct her own research, and capturing stars cannot be accomplished by just importing calculation formulas. Binghua needs to build a dense space around the star, an energy compression field generator, and at the same time access Tianjian's computing power and his own computing power to work together. At the same time, a special container must be prepared in advance to store the compressed stars. For this container, which is less than the size of a palm, Binghua spent a long time and repeatedly verified and modified the only finished product. Heavenly Sword, release the energy field compression generator. Binghua projected a light curtain to monitor real-time data, and at the same time he did not forget to give orders to Tianjian. The location delivery is being carried out through the gate of time and space system. It is estimated that it will take 10 hours. The projection of the Heavenly Sword system appeared beside Binghua, his tone as indifferent as usual. "Okay, then I will leave the next data calculation to you, and I will be responsible for the general operation." After Binghua finished speaking, he began to focus on the work at hand. Based on the data of the star in front of him, he corrected some errors in the energy compression field. This is a lot of work, but Binghua doesn't feel bored at all at this moment, and he is more interested than ever. As time goes by, the prismatic silver metal devices gradually become evenly distributed on the entire star's surface. Although they are far apart from each other, they seem to be connected by invisible threads, preventing them from shaking and breaking away. A few days later, Binghua finally completed the inspection of all energy compression field generators. Standing in front of the nameless star, Binghua looked up and commented on the bright light and muttered to himself, "Soon you'll be mine. Heavenly Sword, start compressing." It's the queen who begins to contain the stellar radiation and isolate the inner and outer space. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 733. As Binghua started his own star capture plan, the star's brilliance wrapped in the energy compression field generator began to converge at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon turned into a fiery red burning sphere. As the energy radiated outward by the star is isolated, the next step is the gravitational waves it emits, and finally begins to compress the space where the star resides. As the star's gravitational waves disappeared, the few asteroids and native planets in this planetary system that were originally captured by the star's gravity gradually deviated from their original orbits and drifted toward the distant starry sky. Binghua didn't care about this, and she didn't have the leisure to pay attention to it at the moment. Her eyes were carefully staring at the star that had been completely isolated from the outside world. The isolation of space energy has been completed, and preparations for space compression have begun. Compression is in progress. The originally calm space energy compression force field generator gradually lit up with criss-crossing lines. In conjunction with the driving formula imported in advance in the internal engine, the force field began to spread. As time goes on, the force field spreads wider and wider, and the energy jets that boil from time to time on the surface of the star gradually become stable. The next step is to start synchronously compressing space and energy. This process is not fast, otherwise all the efforts will be wasted if there is any accident. Binghua and Tianjian systems are running together, and are ordered by Binghua to capture energy for the stars. Operating status to prevent errors. A few days later, the star that originally occupied the entire field of vision had now turned into a sphere with a diameter of several hundred meters. Its surface was constantly undulating, as if it wanted to break through the force field that restricted it. However, the force field is still very stable, and there is no sign of being broken through, and the progress of compressing the star is progressing by 1% in several hours. Binghua had also calmed down from her initial excitement. All she could do now was wait quietly. A few days later, Binghua flapped his wings and floated in the middle of the space energy generator, looking at the prismatic crystal in his palm that was dyed with a layer of magnificent orange-red color. The orange-red sphere with constantly fluctuating surface inside it was so charming. After admiring it for a moment, Binghua put it into his arsenal. Sky Sword, we succeeded, and the stars are now in the palm of my hand. The Eternal Ascended One is before me, ready to be destroyed. Binghua looked confident, using the energy of a star for her own use. This was such abundant energy. With this energy, she could do many things that she could not do before. And capturing stars is just the beginning. If stars can be captured, then neutron stars and white dwarfs at the end of stellar evolution can also be captured. You must know that the density of a neutron star can reach hundreds of millions of tons per cubic centimeter, and the dark silver is just a fragile tissue in front of it, and the super strong pulse of the neutron star is the nemesis of the eternal sublime. No matter how strong his ability to resist electromagnetic pulses is, he can only be helpless in the face of the pulse wave formed by this cosmic natural disaster. As soon as he thought of it, Binghua immediately added a few research topics to his research diary, such as building a few neutron blades first. Binghua's departure did not affect the mobilization of various world wars in the world of justice. Retired officers began to be recalled, and young people of appropriate age who were willing to join the army were given the green light. The latest guard-type power armor originally equipped for the original world and the expedition fleet world began to arrive in various worlds from the God's Throne world, and was equipped for use by a large number of defense forces. Of course, the Elite Legion also has its armor changed. It is the demigod-powered armor called the Ultimate Type. Although its performance is not as powerful as the second-generation demigod armor, it has reached the limit of what the Elite Legion can perform, so it is called the Extreme Type. In addition, the Immortal Legion in Fanchon World was also established. The small immortals among them were officially changed to immortals, while the giant immortals were called Apocalypse. Apocalypse can be seen as an enlarged version of the small immortal. Compared with the small immortal that focuses on mobility, Apocalypse pays more attention to protection and destructive power. The Foundry Master of Fanchon World frantically installed a space-time shield generator and matching antimatter reactor group inside Apocalypse. The whole body was equipped with 4 large dark matter annihilation cannons, 6 medium-sized dark matter annihilation cannons, and numerous small dark matter missiles. Pod. Of course, due to cost reasons, Apocalypse did not build too many, only 4, while the Immortals built more than 200. Together, they formed the Immortal Army in Fanchon World. In addition, the design has been completed and the Annihilation-class mothership, which has been built for decades, is almost completed. It was jointly designed by the Masters of Makra Hull Engineering and the Casting Masters of Fanchon Star, and was produced by the Universe No. 1 shipyard in Fanchon World. a behemoth that occupies one-third of the production capacity of the entire Fanchengxing shipyard. Although from Binghua's point of view, he was still a little short of the Heavenly Blade's level, he could at least compete with the Heavenly Blade. This is a great improvement, but currently only Fanchengxing can produce it independently, and the construction time is extremely slow, making it impossible to install in batches. This has to be said to be a pity. The third world of New Erols, the sixth planet located in the Erols planetary system, has become a habitable planet after a long period of environmental transformation in the Erols world. Ililo sat in his smoky study, the cigarette in his mouth kept burning and falling ashes, his eyes fell on the army recall notice on the table, and he didn't know what he was thinking. With a click, the study opened and a middle-aged woman stepped in. When she saw the smoky scene in the room, she was a little bored and didn't talk to Ililo immediately. She opened the window first to let in the air. Circulation. The originally dark room immediately became brighter. Can't you go outside and smoke? I thought the study was on fire when I first came in. Ililo was still silent. Her wife Olentia finally felt that something was wrong with her husband today, so she moved over and snuggled up to him, her tone not living up to her previous complaints, and she asked softly, "What happened to you today? Why do you look unhappy? Did something happen?" Ililo put down the cigarette in his hand, extinguished it, and slowly exhaled. "You also saw the news a few days ago. The Eternal Ascended Ones are about to launch a full-scale war with the Just World. All worlds have begun war mobilization and recalled retired officers." After hearing this, Olentia noticed the recall notice on the table, and felt her heart tightening, and her mood suddenly became heavy. "Mom, Dad, I went to play at Rank's house." Then there was the sound of someone going down the stairs. A boy opened the door, looked at his father and mother, and asked curiously, "What's wrong with you?" "No, it's okay. You can go to Ranka's house to play. Be careful on the road." The boy didn't doubt his presence, closed the door and left in a hurry. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 734. Can't you not go? After a long silence, Olentia spoke first. Ililo remained silent, but this was the best answer. After a long time, Ililo spoke up and said, "Most of the things I have now are obtained from the army. They are my honor, but they are also a responsibility." After finishing speaking, Iliro looked at the display cabinet in the study room. There were medals symbolizing military honor. They were proof of his participation in that tragic war, and it was also the past that he least wanted to recall. But now he had to step onto that hell-like battlefield again and face the enemy he least wanted to face. Whenever he thinks of the power of the Eternal Ascended One, Ililo will think of his wife Orenza and his children. If he were still as clear-minded as before, I'm afraid he wouldn't be as sentimental as he is now. Ililina did not go there for the next few days, and stayed at home with Olentia and her children until there was only one day left before the time limit on the recall notice. Ililo opened his eyes early that day and got up gently without waking his wife in bed. He opened his wardrobe and put on his military uniform that he had not touched for several years. Just when Ililo was packing his luggage, Olentia was leaning against the door at some point. Seeing Ililo discovering her, she took a few steps and hugged him from behind. "My heart really doesn't want you to go, but I know I can't stop you. But you must remember that you still have me, and this home that has been waiting for you to come back." Ililo gently stroked the back of Oris's hand covering her abdomen. "Don't worry, I will definitely come back. After all, I have such a considerate wife like you, and I can't bear to leave you behind." After saying that, Ililo turned around and kissed Orenza's cherry lips. Oranza put her hands on her child's shoulders and watched the retreating figure with him, her eyes uncontrollably sore. "Mother, where is father going? When will he come back?" Faced with the child's question, Oranza resisted the urge to cry, squatted down and looked into the child's eyes and said, "Your father was there to protect the world we live in and our family. He will come back after he defeats the bad guys who want to harm us." After speaking, Olenka hugged her child. The reason why she lost control of her emotions was entirely because the war more than 10 years ago left her with very bad memories. At that time, she would check the list of sacrifices announced by the army every day, fearing that the name of her favorite person would be among them. Fortunately, Ililo survived and returned successfully. But in the area where Olenka lives, there are many families who have not waited for their sons and husbands. All they have to wait are notices of sacrifice and their pensions. But now that the war is starting again, Olenka doesn't know if she can wait for her husband this time. She doesn't want to receive a notice of her husband's sacrifice one day and make her children lose their father early. But she understands that protecting the just world is the responsibility of every citizen of the just world, so she tries to maintain her normal appearance in front of Ililo and not cause too much psychological burden on him, but now she can't help it. There are many families like Ililo in the world of Ehlers. After all, Ehlers participated in the war against the Eternal Ascended Ones and has rich experience in fighting the enemy. Other worlds are not much different. The military needs these grassroots commanders with rich combat experience to lead the newly established large number of combat troops, so that these recruits can become familiar with the combat mode of the Eternal Ascendants as soon as possible. After Binghua completed the star capture experiment, he found a neutron star to conduct his own experiment within 2 years. The result was a great success and he successfully captured the neutron star. However, after capturing the neutron star, how to process the neutron star is a big problem, because its mass is too large, and no other means can have an effect except moving and controlling it with a force field. This is because Binghua added the previously captured microstars to his Titan's hand armor, otherwise it would be impossible to maintain the transfer of neutron stars. Although other scholars in the Justice world are very enthusiastic about the special super material of neutron stars, they can only watch it because they do not have the powerful force field control ability like the goddess. There was no suitable workbench that could hold part of the neutron star. Finally, the great wise men of the world of Makra came up with a way. Forcibly stretch the neutron star into the shape of a weapon with a force field, and then recapture a star and embed it into the shape of the constant neutron star after it was pulled up. At the same time, the energy of the star is used to reduce the actual mass of the neutron star so that it can be easily picked up. Finally, it is processed and the original power of the neutron star is partially released through the force field. After hearing this, Binghua felt that this idea was good, and he could definitely add mass to energy conversion technology. Although it was difficult, if he succeeded, he would be able to get a handheld super weapon. Whatever she wanted to do, Binghua had always been an activist and immediately started to overcome problems. She left all matters concerning the world of justice to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Ministry of Military Affairs. Several years passed like this. While the world of justice was expanding its army and increasing the amount of military training, it was building fortress worlds one after another in areas outside the world of justice, which were also on the moving tracks of the planetary fortresses of those eternal ascended ones. The fortress world is different from the ordinary world. It is like a fortress in a cold weapon civilization war, specifically serving the war. This kind of world will have a giant space-time shield system. There are giant dark matter annihilation forts capable of ultra-long-range strikes, countless dark matter missile launch bases, and large and small orbital defense facilities. This is a preparation to block the Eternal Ascended One from outside the sphere of influence of the just world. Otherwise, if this war were to take place within the just world, I don't know how many innocent people would be affected. During the period of preparations for the war, the destroyer planet fortress that was breached near the Star of Ilals has been continuously transformed by the Justice World in the past few decades. The internal manufacturing system is now ready for use to produce some basic military equipment. The defense facilities were also modified into a space-time shield system, abandoning the original purification energy field. Because the Justice World has only scratched the surface of purifying energy fields and cannot apply it on a large scale, it can only modify the energy supply system of the destroyer planet fortress. However, even if it is repaired, the destroyer fortress can only sail slowly and cannot use the gate of time and space system for remote delivery. Its size and mass are too large. Even if the gate of time and space is increased to its maximum power, it cannot open a space channel the size of a planet. Therefore, the destroyer fortress can only slowly sail to the star field outside Ilals to serve as an important transfer station for supplies and soldiers. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 735. In the God's Throne World, in the Stellar Ring Laboratory, Binghua is operating the large force field equipment in the laboratory, gradually changing the appearance of the neutron star captured by him. In fact, it is not difficult to turn it into a handheld sword form, but Binghua cannot stand the rough surface of the neutron star after changing its form. It is not artistic at all. Because it is just like finding a rough and polished piece of rock. Binghua has always had a very high pursuit of the appearance of weapons, and sometimes he will even sacrifice a little bit of performance for the sake of appearance. Therefore, Binghua has been working on how to polish her neutron war blade and carve it recently. She has tried many methods, even using most of the energy power of the clustered star ring to melt it. The results are impressive. The density of the neutron star is so high that even if it is capable of melting all things, it will not be able to leave any traces on its body. Binghua didn't have any good solution for this, she could only grind it bit by bit, preparing to spend time polishing the super weapon that she had high hopes for. But it is a pity that the war between the Just World and the Eternal Ascended One is imminent, which does not give her too much time to do her own thing. No, the self-ignition communication popped up, and Binghua could only put down what he was doing and connect the communication. Queen, some angels of judgment have discovered the vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones, and we have already engaged in a firefight with them. Ran's tone was serious. Regarding the invasion of the Eternal Ascended Ones, she was not as confident as Binghua. She had been very sad recently. As soon as she got the news, she came to report to her queen. It seems they are very anxious, otherwise they wouldn't be rushing so actively. I understand, please tell the Angel of Judgment not to tangle with the vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones. It is the job of the defense force to let them approach the fortress world and resist the Purifier fleet, while your task is to deal with the high-level mechanical warriors hidden in the Purifier fleet. Sometimes victory in local wars is also important, otherwise sooner or later it will lead to bitter consequences that cannot be swallowed. Therefore, you and the Judgment Angel must prevent the elite power of the Eternal Ascended from destroying the fortress world. Yes, Queen, I will not let those mechanical warriors slaughter mortals. After Ran finished speaking, he hung up the call. His attitude was different from usual. This was also one of Ran's strengths. He was serious when he should be serious, but in private he was a very kind angel. Binghua looked at his neutron war blade, which was still in a semi-finished state, and shook his head slightly with regret. He was afraid that he would not be able to take her to participate in the battlefield with the Eternal Ascended Ones. Binghua began to debug his equipment so that they could continue processing the neutron war blade after he left. After doing this, Binghua returned to his lounge, took off his research clothes, and put on his own armor that was very similar to the Angel King's armor. And when Binghua paused his research, debugged his arsenal, and prepared to go to the front line in person. The advance fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones has arrived in the planetary system where the first fortress world is located. For this group of uninvited visitors, the Fortress World soldiers have no idea of being indifferent to them. They use dark matter annihilation cannons to output a burst of firepower in their direction. The Purifier Advance Fleet, which was attacked head-on, also successfully attracted the attention of the Fortress World. It stopped sailing towards the Justice World and launched a fierce attack on the Fortress World. Thousands of Eternal Ascension warships are constantly bombarding the space-time shield of the Fortress World, and from time to time they will blast out a small area gap. At this time, the Purifier fleet will take the opportunity to drop a large number of ground units into the Fortress World to destroy the fortress. Orbital defenses on the world's surface. Moreover, this is not the only vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones. There are also advance fleets of the Ascended Ones in other star regions. For a time, war broke out in the star field around the world of justice, and countless lives were turned into bones every day, but they also succeeded in holding back the Eternal Ascended Ones from rushing towards the world of justice. The fleets in each world were not idle either. Taking advantage of the fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones being held back by the Fortress World, they began to concentrate their superior forces and continuously eat up the advance fleets of the Eternal Ascending Ones that attacked the Fortress World. The war was raging for a while, but countless families lost their sons and husbands every day, and the strong walls they forged with their blood continued to devour the available troops of the Eternal Ascended Ones. Binghua knew all this well, but she could only watch helplessly. She could only solve the dilemma of one battlefield, but she could not solve the dilemma of dozens of battlefields at the same time. And the most ominous thing is that according to Zhu Tianjian's report and observations from other worlds, several purification fleets have sneaked into the sphere of influence of the Justice World. Binghua stopped her research precisely because of this incident, but because the scope of the world of justice is too vast, she is waiting for news. Goddess, news came from the world of Kaver that the vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones was discovered, and there were 12 Purifier-level flagships among them. Moreover, the world of Kavur also requested emergency support from the world of God, because according to calculations, the fleet was approaching their world. Minister of Military Affairs Abi Karkin reported to Binghua, with a determined expression and no panic in his tone. Now that you have found it, you can't let it go. Prepare the gate of time and space and mobilize an army of demigods to finish it off for me. I will go and deal with them myself. They have been wandering around in the province, causing panic within the scope of the righteous world. After saying this, Binghua put down the projection book in his hand, stood up from his throne, and walked towards the opened wormhole to the door to time and space. Abi Kakin was already used to this. Seeing that the goddess had left the throne room, he turned and went to the door, preparing to recruit a demigod army and matching warships to finish off the goddess. As for whether the goddess can destroy the fleet composed of purifier flagships, Abi Kakin has no doubts about this. The power of the goddess is well known to the high-level officials of the world of justice. Ordinary enemies are vulnerable to the goddess, even the eternal ascendants. As the space in front of her changed, the blue light around Binghua faded, and she had already moved from the center of the justice world to the planet Kavur, which was located on the edge of the justice world and had just become a directly governed world. As soon as he arrived near Kavur star, Binghua immediately opened his eyes of insight and quickly scanned the eternal ascended fleet that was about to enter the planetary system. Then Binghua no longer hesitated and flapped his wings to quickly approach his target. During this period, the Titan's hand armor was carried out and automatically attached to Binghua's arm. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 736. Facing the approaching ice flower, the Eternal Ascender naturally discovered this uninvited guest. Although they can't figure out what is approaching quickly, this does not prevent them from destroying the unknown object. The Annihilator and the two Purifier flagships located at the front of the fleet opened fire at the same time. Dozens of purification beams of varying thicknesses rushed across the starry sky toward their targets. Binghua, who was designated as the target, did not panic at all. he just slightly changed his flight trajectory to avoid the incoming purification beams. At this time, the Eternal Ascended Fleet, which could not be directly seen by the ice flower, had appeared in his field of vision. Seeing the ice flower, it accelerated again, like a group of silver meteors falling at high speed, crossing the last distance from the Purifier fleet, and came to in front of them. On one side are giant metal ships that can sail across the sea of stars, and on the other side there is just a lone figure. If anyone sees this contrasting picture, they will definitely laugh at the figure for overestimating his own capabilities. However, the vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones began to disperse as if facing a formidable enemy to give full play to their numerical and firepower advantages. Binghua just watched quietly and did not stop it. However, the left hand covered with the Titan's hand armor was slowly raised, and the miniature orange-red sphere inside the embedded prismatic crystal on the arm armor suddenly lit up. The sacred language engraved on the surface of the arm armor and the densely intertwined energy circuits inside also emitted a faint light, and an invisible force instantly enveloped the entire starry sky in front of Binghua. "I only know how to bully the weak, so please disappear." After Binghua finished speaking, he waved the arm covering the Titan's grip, and suddenly the battleship of the Eternal Ascended One in the starry sky in front of him seemed to be wrapped in an invisible giant body and rammed from the left to the right. Battleships collided with each other and were huddled together like garbage being swept away. Among them, the small Annihilator battleship was directly squeezed and deformed by the huge Purifier flagship, making it impossible to see the original shape. Even the Purifier flagship, which was much larger in mass and volume, could not withstand this arrogant force field squeeze. Most of the ship's hull collapsed. Needless to say, the internal structure had long been twisted into a knot. After doing all this, the Titan's grip in Binghua's hand stopped outputting energy. Binghua nodded to express satisfaction with the shocking scene he had created. With a star-level energy source as the output core, her force field driving ability has undergone a qualitative change. Coupled with the fact that she has grown to a certain extent in the dark plane computing power, it is not impossible for her to move planets now. Give it a try. This was also the reason why Binghua was very calm about the invasion of the Eternal Ascended Ones, because she had the confidence to turn things around. No matter how many ordinary Eternal Ascending Army troops came, it was just a matter of moving his fingers for him. If he didn't know where the Eternal Ascended One's headquarters was, Binghua would definitely go there to ask for advice and let the other party know that he was not a weakling who could be beaten whenever you wanted. A tragedy that would have created a huge commotion in the world of justice was stopped by Binghua in advance. After the demigod army arrived at the scene, all that was left to them was countless Eternal Ascended battleships and ships in the starry sky of the universe. The twisted long-shaped remains formed by the extrusion of the body. Everyone marvels at the power of the goddess and is proud of the power of the goddess, because this is the goddess they will loyal to forever. In the next few days, Binghua took action several times, and any Eternal Ascended One who entered the world of justice was twisted into twists by the force field, without exception. Simialo, the host of the Eternal Ascendant, also felt unusual about this, because these Purifier series battleships that had lost contact did not send back any news at the moment they lost contact, which forced Simialo to raise the level of justice again. The threat level of the world. The crisis in the rear was eliminated, leaving the warriors in the front who fought bloody battles with the mechanical army of the Eternal Ascended without any worries. A steady stream of high-energy crystals and materials on the supply line are continuously delivered to various fortress worlds through the gates of time and space, which greatly eases the load of the Purification Fleet's firepower on the time and space shield system. Even if there is a problem with the space-time shield due to overload, the spare space-time shield can be used to top it up. At this time, the problematic space-time shield system can be properly repaired. For a just world with energy printing technology, most parts can be easily manufactured unless some items have high energy properties. Therefore, the just world can equip the entire army with guard power armor, and upgraded extremely frequently. As the war progresses, the next generation research direction of the Guardian's power armor has been determined, including stronger firepower, external armor that can defend against purification energy erosion to a certain extent, and higher power output. This includes battleship weapons, etc. Since we are fighting the Eternal Ascended Ones, we must be equipped with weapons that can restrain them, otherwise we will suffer too much. In battleship duels in the starry sky, fleet commanders found that kinetic energy weapons were often able to break through and tear apart energy field defenses more easily than pure energy weapons. On the ground battlefield, kinetic energy weapons and energy weapons each have their own advantages. Kinetic energy weapons can more easily make the eliminators lose their combat effectiveness. Although energy weapons can easily penetrate the armor of the eliminators, they are difficult to cause real fatal injuries to them. After all, they are made of metal and do not have many of the weaknesses of flesh and blood in the conventional sense. Binghua had just finished dealing with a purification fleet that had entered the world of justice, and was about to return to the throne world when a communication from the Ministry of Military Affairs popped up. Binghua raised her eyebrows slightly when she saw this. To be honest, she didn't like the sudden pop-up of communications from the Ministry of Military Affairs, because it often meant that there was something urgent that she, the queen at the center, needed to handle. But at the same time, Binghua couldn't ignore them unilaterally. He turned on the communication, and the familiar face of Abby Karkin immediately appeared in the projection. Your Excellency, Goddess, I'm sorry to disturb your cleanup operation, but this matter has been carefully discussed by our Military Affairs Department and must be reported to you. As expected by Binghua, nothing that came to her was trivial. Say, I'm listening. Binghua's reply was very brief, and Abikakan now no longer had the time to speculate on the goddess's mood, so he spoke quickly. Goddess, our fortress world No. 052 on the outer ring front has just broken through the space-time shield defense system. The vanguard fleet of the Eternal Ascended Ones is cleaning the surface of the fortress world, and it will take at least a few hours for our nearest fleet to arrive. Abikakan did not say anything else, but the meaning was self-evident. The Ministry of Military Affairs could not immediately mobilize enough reinforcements to defeat the advance fleet to solve the dilemma of Fortress World No. 052. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 737. Binghua also frowned. The God Seed world did have a fleet of gods, but it would not be used until the last moment. If it were used, the world of justice would be short of a fire brigade. Because it is easy to send out, but it is difficult to come back. The gate of time and space can open a large-scale time and space channel, but it can only be near its own body. If you are far away from the world of God's throne, you need to prepare in advance and spend a lot of time analyzing the coordinates of the area where you need to build a space-time channel. But building a small space-time channel is not a heavy load for the time-space gate. This is why Binghua, even the leader of the righteous world, still takes action frequently. I understand. Tell those warriors who are fighting bloody battles for a just world that their goddess will be here soon. After saying this, Binghua hung up the communication and exhaled a breath to call out the heavenly sword. Tianjian, you heard me, build a time and space channel for me immediately. The projection of Tianjian appeared next to Binghua. After receiving the order, he immediately started debugging and retrieved the spatial coordinates of the 052 Fortress world from the Ministry of Military Affairs. Queen, we have detected a dense purification energy reaction in the target area. Do you want to continue building the space-time channel? Go on, even if their god comes, I will leave it there today. Binghua moved his body and carried out the Titan's grip and his own king's sword in advance, holding them in his hands, ensuring that he could kill immediately as soon as they passed. At this moment, In the 052 Fortress world, the space-time shield that originally covered the entire sky disappeared without a trace. The blue purifying beam falling from the sky was like an eraser, constantly erasing the creation of the righteous world on the earth. The thick smoke of the explosion, the flying metal fragments, and the energy jet that can melt everything, turned the world of 052 Fortress into purgatory. But even so, there are still countless dark matter annihilation bombs flying from the Earth at every moment towards the huge purification flagship high in the sky. And orbital bombing alone was not enough. The ground was invaded by a large number of Eliminator mechanical warriors sown from the sky, frantically destroying various facilities in the world of justice. Damn it, damn me, when will the support arrive? Those metal lumps have been shitting on my head. If we don't drive them away, this battle will never go on. A Defense Force captain wearing Guardian power armor pulled the trigger and fired wildly toward the other side of the passage. An Eliminator mechanical warrior that rushed over was beaten and twitched wildly, and armor fragments continued to fall off, until the internal structure was severely damaged, and then he fell to the ground, emitting a faint green smoke. Don't be impatient, we just need to do our own thing well, and naturally someone will find a solution for us. Also spread your people out, otherwise if a purifying beam falls down in a while, no one will be able to survive. Ililo crawled not far away and in his hand was a firearm of astonishing length, a standard high-energy sniper rifle that fired a small high-energy ion warhead. While talking, Iliro did not forget to shoot, maintaining a frequency of every 2 seconds. However, every bullet he fired could accurately hit the core of the chest of the Eliminators, paralyzing them with one blow. Ground, stop running. Brother, your marksmanship is pretty good, how did you practice it? How about you come under my brother's command and let me be my deputy? While speaking, this rough-tongued warrior enthusiastically extended an invitation to Ililo. I'm at the same level as you, so I can't be your deputy. After saying this, Ililo frowned behind his helmet. He felt something was wrong. The Eternal Ascended One was not such a thoughtless existence. He kept charging hard even when he saw that he could not rush in. The experience of fighting the Eternal Ascended Ones in the Battle of Elers told Iliro that they could not be so rigid, and there was definitely something wrong with it. Hey, if you believe me, retreat some distance and install high-energy crystal bombs here. Ililo took the time to say in the communication channel, and at the same time stood up and changed to a kneeling position to shoot. Although this would reduce the accuracy, it was better than being able to run away at any time. If you don't tell me, I really don't feel anything is wrong. Their charging frequency seems to have dropped not long ago. Brothers, pack up your supplies and let's go to the next passage. If you don't want to fight with these childless things here. Those who can become the grassroots intelligence officers of the Defense Force and are stationed in the Fortress world are not idiots who have not experienced war. They have more or less dealt with these emotionless eternal sublimators. They all know that although the tactics of the Eternal Ascended are rigid, they are not rigid. The opponent will also call for support and bombing, and they will not hesitate to kill themselves. If they are ruthless, they will often blow up their own people and the enemy. Now being reminded by Eli Luo, the grassroots commander in charge of this small area naturally felt some kind of uneasiness, so he retreated decisively. Seeing this, Iliro also called a dozen of his men to follow them, leaving behind portable backpacks and setting up remote control detonations in advance. Of course, their retreat was not an unorganized retreat, but a retreat while fighting. However, the Eternal Ascended Ones remained as before, with several Eliminator warriors rushing out from time to time and being beaten into a pile of shapeless wreckage by their firepower. Just as Iliro was retreating with the team, a blue light bullet shot out from the darkness at the other end of the passage. Half of the body of a gun-wielding soldier and his armor were directly blown away. This shocked the other defense soldiers present, but Iliro was not surprised because he was familiar with this attack method. This is an intelligent defense machine, and it is also the heavy firepower unit among the Eternal Ascended ground units. The purification light bombs they launch can easily penetrate ordinary protective equipment. But familiarity also means trouble, because it means that those humanoid mechanical warriors with extremely terrifying combat capabilities have also entered the battlefield, and are not far away from them. Prepare ion armor-piercing rounds. Give him a few rounds as soon as he comes out. Ililo directly issued the order without anyone refuting it. Sure enough, the next moment, an intelligent machine with 2 pairs of mechanical legs, hanging external armor and 2 purification light cannons rushed out of the passage. Normal bullets couldn't cause much damage to him, but before it could show off its power, a few rounds of ion armor-piercing bullets made it collapse. But at this moment, a figure that made Ililo's heart tremble came out of the passage leading a large number of eliminators. The wings spread out on his back, his slim body, the multifunctional information collector with a V-line on his face, and the big sword in his hand. These features told Iliro that he had encountered an opponent that all the defense forces were unwilling to encounter. The Eternal Ascended Special Individual Weapon, a high-sequence mechanical warrior. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 738. Why did it come so fast? Ililo cursed and lost his previous calmness. High-sequence mechanical warriors could be said to be his nightmare. Every time he encountered them, he would lose many familiar faces. Seeing that the soldiers around him wanted to stop and shoot to avenge their companions, Ililo immediately shouted, "Come on! It can't be dealt with the weapons in our hands." After saying this, Ililo looked at the captain of the team and said eagerly, "Hurry up and detonate the preset bomb. We haven't evacuated yet. If we detonate it now, we will be affected too." Seeing Ililo's appearance, the captain also realized that something was wrong, but if it detonated now, they would not be easy. Seeing that the mechanical warriors in the opposite passage were already preparing to charge, Ililo couldn't wait any longer and almost roared. "If it doesn't start, when he gets close to us, none of us will be able to escape. Believe me. You're such a fool, I'll just trust you once." The captain looked fierce. He actually saw the mechanical warrior who looked different from the other eliminators. Although he didn't do anything, he was not easy to mess with at first sight. In addition, the brother next to him reacted so fiercely, so he simply said to his soldiers to prepare to resist the impact, and the next moment he detonated the bomb. When the high-energy crystals placed inside the portable backpacks at their original fighting positions were stimulated, the originally calm energy inside suddenly became violent, and then burst their own load and violently exploded around them. I saw a flash of dazzling white light, followed by a surging and spreading energy shock wave. The terrifying impact enveloped the burning debris and knocked several soldiers who had not found their position directly to the ground. The original intersection hall was completely swallowed up by the explosion of high-energy crystals, and was plunged into a blazing white light, making it impossible to see clearly what was going on inside. Tens of seconds later, the sound of the explosion calmed down. Ililo shook his dizzy head and found that he was lying on the ground at some point. Several yellow signs flashed on the goggles, clearly letting him know the current damage to his armor. At this moment, the big hand appeared in front of him. Ililo looked slightly to one side and found that it was the captain who was fighting with him. "We're in big trouble, man." Pulling Ililo up from the ground, he looked behind him. Ililo followed his line of sight and his pupils shrank because the previous explosion had blown a gap at the top of the tunnel. Through the gap, with a diameter of more than 3 meters, a large number of eliminator stations in the outside sky are continuously firing purification light bombs towards the surface. As for the high-sequence mechanical warrior that appeared before, it was probably blown to pieces. Ililo, who was observing the outside world through the gap, suddenly jumped because he saw several eliminator fighters flying towards the direction of the gap. Before Ililo could speak to remind everyone to be careful, dozens of purifying light bombs were fired at the gap diagonally above their heads, and a violent explosion once again enveloped the area where Ililo was. After the smoke and dust from the explosion dissipated, Ililo stood up again. The explosion just now was not far away from him. Fortunately, he and the team leader were not standing under the gap, otherwise there would probably be no bones left at this moment. But other soldiers were not so lucky. One unlucky guy was too close to the explosion point, and his goggles were blown to pieces. The high temperature burned his face beyond recognition. The gap that was originally 2 to 3 meters has now expanded 2 or 3 times. More Eliminator fighters rushed toward the gap like sharks smelling the smell of blood, followed by bombings with even greater firepower. At this moment, Ililo and other soldiers present had already fled deeper into the passage to avoid the intensive bombing. But as time went by, more and more Eliminators poured into the orbital defense facilities. Even though Iliro was experienced in fighting the enemy, he still could not prevent the loss of his teammates. When they retreated to the last defensive point and there was no way to retreat, there were only a dozen soldiers left, including Iliro himself. The top of the narrow passage was blown away by the non-stop bombing. Iliro and the others were almost directly exposed to the firepower of the Eliminator fighters in the sky. Fortunately, the priority target of the Eternal Ascended was not their remnants, but the air defense firepower network that was more threatening to them. The reinforcements haven't arrived yet. We've been holding on for so long. I guess I was stuck halfway. While Ililo was replying, he also did not forget to shoot. The area defended by another unit not far away suddenly burst into flames. Seeing this scene, both Ililo and the soldiers around him couldn't help but mourn for those colleagues, but maybe their fate would be the same. And just when the defense forces of the 052 Fortress world were pinned to the surface by the Eternal Ascended ones, the wide area communication from the general headquarters rang. For the soldiers who are still fighting bloody battles, the goddess already knows that we are in a desperate situation, and support will arrive shortly. These hateful machines can't be rampant for much longer, so warriors, please persevere and get through this last and most difficult moment. Because victory is at hand. The broadcast from the 052 Fortress World Tactical Planning Department was a shot in the arm for the already exhausted defense forces. Even Ililo couldn't help but feel hope rising in his heart. After all, who would want to die if he could live? With a loud bang, Iliro looked back and saw that the towering dark matter annihilation cannon began to collapse and fall to the side under the constant bombardment of Eliminator fighter planes. When the main target was destroyed, the Eliminator fighters finally focused on the defenders like Ililo, and for a while, intensive purification light bombs fell from the sky. Ililo and the other warriors could only hide behind the bunker, praying that they would not be unlucky enough to be hit directly. As for the approaching Eliminator mechanical warriors, they could no longer stop them at this moment. Just when Ililo and the other warriors were ready for hand-to-hand combat and were planning to fight until the last moment, strange sounds suddenly came from the sky, and the number of falling purification light bombs began to decrease rapidly. Ililo carefully put his head out of the bunker and saw a scene that made him suffocate. Countless Eliminator fighter planes were dragged towards the sky by invisible forces and gathered together. The collision when each other was dragged erupted into bursts of fire, but they couldn't find their enemy at all. Until they were pressed by invisible force into a metal sphere suspended in mid-air, Ililo could see clearly that the area was almost cleared of Eliminator fighters. Then Ililo and his companions heard a nice female voice on the communication channel. It took them a moment to realize that this was not the voice of the goddess.